What's up, guys? Welcome back to Engine25 Reviews. It's a show where I invite friends, colleagues, academics, filmmakers, others who are generally just way funnier, smarter, and more qualified than me. We talk about movies or TV shows and nerd out about stuff we think is cool. If you like that, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and tell your friends. There was a time where I was trying to get an episode made every other week. Work is not allowing that for the foreseeable future. But if you ring that bell, you'll never miss one. We're available on YouTube as a video and as an audio podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. Just search Engine25 Reviews on your favorite service, no space in Engine25, or hit one of the links in the show notes down below. My name is Brandon. I'm your host. You can find me at Engine25 on all the things. Sometimes there's an underscore at the end. And I am joined today. I always call her a guest. She's in more episodes than she's not, so she might as well just be the co-host at this point. She's the darkest of angels and the fifth rider of the apocalypse. It's Catherine Burrell.
I love that. That's great.
No, yeah, I was looking through, and you're in like more than half of them, I think. How are you doing?
I'm good. And it's good to see you. We haven't sat down in a while.
Yeah, I haven't done an episode since Dune, and that was the one you were on, and that was 3 months ago. So it's
Yeah, I had a very busy spring as well. It was a lot.
Katie's a PhD student and is doing doctor things all the time. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, today we're talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Before we get into that, what have you been watching, Katie? Seen anything good lately?
I honestly have not had the time or mental capacity to make it to much. I did indulge my Henry Cavill needs of media consumption over the spring. So I saw Argyle with a group of friends, and then I got them back together to go see Ungentlemanly Warfare. I did not know it was possible to be like a more unhinged version of Inglourious Bastards. And yet Guy Ritchie did it.
It's true.
So
I liked it all. I'm not a big fan of Inglourious Bastards, but I can see the similarities for sure. And I guess maybe
Bastards is one of my favorite movies. It's up there in the top 3. I love it.
Well, half of it is incredible, and the other half is like a weird mess that shouldn't be attached to all the good stuff. But that's just me. No, yeah. I've seen a lot of wonderful things lately. I just saw yesterday. I went to see Bad Boys Ride or Die. With I'm a Will Smith guy. It's really funny. Like it's a lot better than the old Michael Bay ones. Those movies are terrible. I like the one that came out a couple of years ago. It was like the last big movie before the pandemic, basically. And then this one's pretty okay too. Yeah. I saw A Young Woman in the Sea, which really surprised me. Like it's kind of it looks like a really kind of tropey inspirational sports movie, but it had like an old movie feel that I really liked, like almost in a Chariots of Fire kind of vibe. And Daisy Ridley's delightful. I love her so much. I really liked I Saw the TV Glow, which is a terrible mouthful of a title. I Saw the TV Glow, when there's other stuff in there that they could have named the movie, but it's about high school kids that feel kind of other, and they latch on to this television show that's like kind of like Goosebumps or something like that. It's very 90s. And I think it's got a lot of really good ideas. Maybe a bit too avant-garde at times in ways that don't really work for it, but it's really interesting, and I appreciate it a lot. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is fantastic. It's probably not as good as any of the Andy Serkis ones, but they do a lot of really interesting things with ape culture. Like the main kind of tribe they're eaglers. They have an aviary and they train eagles, which is it's a very cool and very simple thing that you can like identify as an audience. And it looks into it's set several hundred years after the Andy Serkis ones, and Andy Serkis, or like Caesar, the character that he plays, is like their savior, basically, and it's like a really interesting commentary on how different people will look back on the same teachings and take away very different things.
I must make a confession that I have never seen a Planet of the Apes movies. And I considered to go see this one only because Rhea Allen is in it.
Freya Allen is in
Just
it,
didn't hit.
and she's very good. She's the only human character with a speaking part. It I love Planet of the Apes. It would be hard for me to recommend you watch the old movies. Not to say like I really like three of them, and the other two are kind of a mess. But like only the first one is like really memorable as far as cinema. And then there's that Tim Burton one we don't talk about, and then there's these ones with Andy Serkis that are all very good and very different.
Those are the ones that I've heard the most about.
Yeah,
Just because I also like saw like their trailers and stuff as they came out. Andy Serkis is a legend. So I think if I was gonna watch any of them, I'd watch the ones that
you're
he's in. And
like, and they kind of they don't really fit into the same like continuity as the old ones anyway. Like I would just recommend watching the Andy Serkis ones.
okay.
Then the middle one is my favorite, Dawn. Dawn and the Planet of the Apes is very also a mouthful of a title. But it's intense and it's wonderful. I really like the Fall Guy. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was really happy just for Freya Allen. So I was like, good for you, girl. You're gonna go
Get it?
places after the show.
Yeah, who knew? God knows what's happening with The Witcher now. Like I saw the trailer with the new guy, one of the Hemsworths, and I was
Liam.
like, yeah, I'm not. I wasn't so into it.
No, it's not any of his fault. I think
It
he's
is not
just
his fault.
He's just not. He's not
He's not
what
Henry.
what we were gonna get.
Yep. And then I saw Challengers, which was intense and very sexy and like very everyone in it is toxic. All of them. It's just yeah, no. There's a lot of big personalities happening in that movie.
That's
Um
what I heard. So I said, no, thank you.
yeah, I don't blame you. On to our main topic. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is directed by George Miller, written by George Miller and Nico Lathoris. George Miller, of course, known for directing all of the Mad Max films all the way back to 1979, as well as Babe, Pig in the City, Happy Feet. What I was just looking at the list here, The Witches of Eastwick from the 80s, if you've seen that. No, he directed segments in the Twilight Zone movie. Yeah, so he's like a very eclectic sort of filmography. Very cool. And
All right. Well,
yeah.
it served him well.
No, it's very interesting filmography. Like Babe, which I loved when I was a kid, and then Happy Feet is so funny. The penguins. Furiosa released on May 24th, 2024 in the United States, had a reported production budget of 168 million, up from the 150 of Fury Road, which is the most recent one. Before that, they were all less than 20 million. But as of June 9th, 2024, which is today, it's earned $144 million. That's the highest figure I could find.
That's
It's
domestic or
no, that's
global?
everything. That's
Okay.
global, and that's not good, and that's very upsetting. Um, it's been out for 16 days, and it hasn't made its budget back yet. So it's upsetting because it's hard to say if we're going to get another one. This one took 9 years to make because Fury Road, the last one in 2015, it's well regarded now, but it wasn't super successful when it came out. Like it just broke even after marketing everything. It did better than this one is doing, but one of the big factors as to why Furiosa took so long to get greenlit was just because Fury Road really got some traction in the home video space, and it won 6 Oscars.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Remember that very well.
and Fury Road is a masterpiece of modern action. Like I think it's in the same conversation as like Top Gun Maverick, that kind of thing. It's and I'll expound on that a bit later. But
I actually have a DVD copy of Fury Road because when it came out, a friend of mine loved it so much and thought it was so good. And I think I'd seen it because he'd put it on or something. And I was like, oh, it's great. And I was like tracking the Oscars and I was like, saw it all. So I always knew it was great. And he gifted me a copy of the DVD for that Christmas.
Perfect.
So I still have it. But I appreciate Fury Road, but that's my only, orientation with the Mad Max world. I'm not really. I went and saw Furiosa because I liked the premise. I
Sure.
was intrigued, and I knew Fury Road, so I was like, it'll probably be great. But I am like a blank slate when it comes to any of the lore or any of the bigger picture kinds of things about it. So I'm probably actually like, this is probably the movie that I know the least about that we've ever talked about.
It happens. No, yeah. It's all good. I mean, honestly, like, Mad Max is like something you look back on as like, that's like a charming thing from the 80s. But when you break it down, there's actually a lot of really good stuff there. I don't necessarily say that I think you need to go look at the old movies. Because Fury Road is very different. Like, it's like the realization that they could not achieve 35 years ago. It's like kind of like what it was always supposed to be. And I generally like the old movies. I really like The Road Warrior, which was, that was on TV a couple of times in the 90s. Hadn't really seen any of the other movies until college when I got Netflix, and I was just like churning through the mail-in disc thing that you used to be able to do with Netflix. And Mad Max was just like, that was one of the many things that I cycled through. That first movie is kind of weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's like everything's still green. And but The Road Warrior, which is Mad Max 2, is released as The Road Warrior in America because the first movie didn't make any money. And then Beyond Thunderdome with Tina Turner as the villain.
Oh wow!
No, yeah, and she's got this big hair. It's crazy. But they're all like, kind of over the top action movies, but with a lot of really smart thematic material. And Fury Road just takes that whole premise and runs with it, and it's very very inclusive. Like there are a number of individuals in the cast of Fury Road with like actual physical disabilities. There's I should have looked up his name, but the man who operates the telescope is a disability advocate that has a rare bone disease. And it's always been very feminine forward. There's a very strong female character in The Road Warrior, and here we have Furiosa, who is in Fury Road fighting for the rights of women, all important things. And in Furiosa, we find out how and why she became this person. Did you tell me about Furiosa? What'd you think?
I really liked it. I just don't know if it's something that I would go back to watch just to like put something on, or
That's fair.
like for entertainment, because I think it's really serious, and it's just not one of those things that I personally would just like throw on the TV, just have it, or it's not what I would just want to go sit and rewatch.
I
think it takes a lot of mental energy to actually sit with it.
It does. Like there's I use this metaphor a lot, but there's a lot going on under the hood here, and it seems like a joke when I say it in this context, but no, I would agree. Like it's bigger than Fury Road. It's like, I don't know if I would say it's more like physically intense, but it's more there's more deeper themes happening for sure. There's a lot more to think about, and it's more difficult to just absorb this at its surface, which I would say Fury Road works both ways. It's like Fury Road's a super fun movie that you can just watch and have a good time with. But if you when you start to break it down, there's a lot of other stuff in there, and I would say that there is not as much fun to be had with Furiosa, but it is just as, if not more, thematically complex.
I think that, obviously it's an action movie, but it's an action movie that is so deeply motivated by the internal characterizations and motivations of Furiosa and what's his name?
Dementis?
Chris Hemsworth.
Dementis.
Dementis, yeah. Thank you. By the two of them, that it's like secondarily an action movie. It's a drama,
yes,
and it's an epic first and foremost.
And that's the thing. Fury Road is, that takes place over like 3 days, right? And it's very propulsive. It's always moving. And on a podcast the other day, I heard like they described it as a siege movie, except the siege is happening at 80 miles an hour. Like it's that the action is very impressive, and they do a lot of things that have never been done before, but it can be enjoyed at that level without, and it doesn't necessarily take anything away from the experience. But it's a very focused, like that same, it was Writers Blockbusters podcast, and they said like big world, small window. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And if you really if you look, there's a lot of interesting things that you can draw context from, but it's a very focused story that is very like small and short term. Furiosa takes place over decades. This is like, and it like with, there are a number of like title screens in the movie that like denote different chapters in her life. Like this is an epic poem. Like that is not what Fury Road is.
They are both very dark.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that like a lot of people, maybe that's why both Fury Road and Furiosa haven't done well at the box office, because honestly they're dark and they take a lot of mental energy to go into them. I can see why it struggles, but I think that when they come out on streaming, or when Furiosa comes out on streaming, then both of them will get really popular.
I think that's probably true. Like, and it's let's go ahead and talk about the cast. Like, let's do Chris Hemsworth first, because he's ridiculous, and he's got the fake nose, and it's like, and to be fair, like he should be a big box office draw at this point. Like maybe Love and Thunder turned some people away, but no, he's Chris Hemsworth, and he even he kind of looks like Thor, other than he's got the big ridiculous the big false nose. But I love the accent, and he's just like, he's at the surface. Again, like I feel like that's something that I've had a lot about. There's a surface layer to these movies, and then there's a lot more if you dig into them. He's a very he's ridiculous. He's so over the top.
In an interview, I think it was on Colbert, maybe, that he said that he based the voice off of his grandfather and a seagull.
Apparently that voice, it seems very funny to us as Americans, but it's apparently that's not that far removed from the way a lot of people actually talk, depending on it's like a regional accent from a certain part of Australia.
Or even a generational kind of accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's sinister, and he has goals, and it's hard to separate the production design from the character, but I absolutely love that he rides a chariot that's pulled by motorcycles. It's just
just realized I had a thought. I'm gonna bring in you've played The Wild Hunt, right? Witcher 3?
I haven't, not really. Not in any significant amount.
Okay. Well, I was just playing it on the plane, and so I was thinking this.
Playing it on the plane? You have a Steam Deck? How are you playing it on the plane?
Switch.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot it's on Switch. Yep.
Yeah. But Dementis reminds me of the Bloody Baron. The guy, it's a little bit of an obscure reference. Maybe somebody will get it. But in the games, he's this big, like really problematic dude, but he's in a position of power because he just kind of like usurped this whole like region. And then like the other people in charge were like, okay, I guess you can do that. And then he just like completely messes it all up and like tries to um parallels are there. There
There,
we
no,
go. There's
I
a
get
good
that.
gaming reference I can give.
No, that's fine, and we will. I like I like where you're going with that. We'll bring that back around in the spoilers. Um,
Yeah.
a Anya Taylor Joy is also very like, and she's very good. Like I don't want to say I'm surprised, but like there's a definitely an intensity here that I
There's a
like.
stillness to her performance this time,
Yes,
which is really paradoxical to the action
yeah, it's
genres.
every because everything's so kinetic, and she's just she's able to
Yeah, she's
remain
like the
calm.
constant thing that everything else kind of revolves around.
No, it's absolutely wonderful. I'm going to shout out. We got a lot more of my boy Immortan Joe than I expected. It looks like it's doing some the keyer's doing some funky things with the color, but no, I love Immortan Joe, and I was thrilled by how much more we got of him in this. Um, I liked his.
Even I recognized, things coming in from Fury Road, especially not having seen it in a while. But I was recognizing things and I was like, okay, like I can follow it even though I'm not like up to date on all of
I
it. But I thought that they pulled it all in really nicely.
Yeah, in ways that make a lot of sense, and I do want to say like I have a question. Why do people follow Dementis? He's got a biker gang basically, and I'm going to follow that up with some thoughts about Immortan Joe.
I think they follow him because he's like one of those like false prophet kind of characters. He's like, I want to
Okay,
promise you all of this, and then we'll do it together, and I'm your friend, and drink the Kool-Aid.
okay, drinking the Kool Aid because I would follow up with. It is easy to see why people follow Immortan Joe. He has water. Because he has water, he has food. He's created this like religion, like this cult almost, where he's promising these people that he can save them from the misery of the wasteland, and that seems like something that people can latch onto and believe in. Like, and that's just something that as much as I love the performance, I didn't feel that as much from Dementis. It's like, why is this guy instead of that other guy? Why is he the one that's able to command this army of bikers? Like, as opposed to somebody else. Like, and it's so easy to see with Immortan Joe. What's the difference here?
Yeah. One has resources and one has structure, right? Till the
Yeah.
end, and the other one just has like a really weird riz.
Maybe that's all you need.
Yeah, I mean, we can look to our current political climate as well. There's a weird thing going on where it's like that's not really charismatic, and yet people identify with it and drink the Kool-Aid,
There's
So I think it's an allegory. I think it's a comment, an interesting one at that.
so these Australian filmmakers are making fun of us stupid Americans and the people that we elect to office. Is that what's happening?
I think that's part of it, but it's part of a bigger global
No,
trend.
no,
Too.
I know.
So
Um,
yeah, I think you could definitely, if I knew more about like the South Pacific, you could definitely bring in like Jacinda Ardern, is that her name? The former Prime Minister of New Zealand, and whatever's going on
that
in
sounds
Australia right
familiar.
now.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, there's probably deeper comments in there,
Mhm.
especially on the genders between these two characters.
Sure.
I just don't have enough political context to bring it out. But, I think that there's a broader conversation there about, actually having like resources and advantages to give versus like how you sell that to people. And Dementis does that really well.
It's true.
He's
And
actually like
it's
he knows his people.
That makes a lot of sense to like. Not that I would, because I definitely think that Immortan's followers are drinking the Kool Aid because he's sending countless poor children to their deaths. But you know, that's in the things that they say are again like motivations that are understandable, and especially like if you're trying to cram a lot of information into a big action movie, you can get there very quickly as opposed to like they didn't really spend a lot of time explaining why everyone follows Dementis. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
that's why I ask. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that that's part of the mythical kind of quality of it
Sure.
that you were saying. Like it's total fable, it's mythology, it's epic. And so it's like, why do we take, for historical knowledge or whatever, like, why does everybody follow Agamemnon?
The
Just
well,
sticks
it's he's the and in that play, you know, like there are sociological constructs in place at that point in civilization. You know, Agamemnon was the king. If you don't follow the king, bad things happen to you. You know, and not to say that there's not more than that, because there are people that believe in him, obviously, but you know, there are this. But that I think that's a good point that you bring up. That makes a lot of sense. Uh, the production design of these movies is wild. And it's
Yeah.
everything. It's intentional. You know, everything is made from something that's repurposed. And George Miller has said in a number of interviews, no matter how impoverished, you know, this goes back as far as human history when we first learned to draw. Like, no matter how bad things get, people will still be motivated to make beautiful things. You know, and I think that
Mhm.
is, you know, creativity begets creativity. It's a you want to express yourself. You know, we're sitting here making a podcast. You know, like it's
Mhm.
so, but in this case, the things that they make, they use the materials they have, which is steel and gasoline and wheels. You know, like it's
Yeah.
yeah. You have people decorate their steering wheel. You know, and they the tanker has these like I don't know how if you remember, but the first tanker that they go out on, it's like chrome and it has these beautiful like etchings of like Immortan Joe and like battle scenes on the side of the tanker. It's just like people
Mhm.
will always want to make beautiful things. People will always want to express themselves, no matter how bad the world gets. You know, and I think that's a an inspiring and just beautiful commentary. Like, and it doesn't. No one says that in the movie. You know, this is the director talking to a camera off like in a promo video, but it's you know, it says so much about the approach to this. Like, people are miserable, but this is what they're going to do to you know to try to enjoy their lives a little bit. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, what's the point? And yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
I find that really beautiful and inspiring. Um,
Well, well, why does anybody make a movie?
sure,
It's the same thing. So, the production design, I was very impressed by how much it actually looked like what I remember Fury Road to look like. Maybe that's
absolutely.
me not remembering correctly,
No,
but
no,
I
you're
thought it was
absolutely
like
right. Yeah.
really similar.
And the use of color is just like during the daylight everything's orange, and at night like there's no lights really, like there's no electricity in most of these, like I think at all. Even
Mhm.
the big citadel like doesn't have electrical power, so it's like the night scenes are like kind of blue, like great, like, and the sky is really prominent. Um, and even you can see on this on the logo I here have like, you know, there everything is orange except for the sky, which is this blue green color, and like predominantly those are the two colors of the movie. You know, like with exception, like they're different enough from like blood that you can that the red kind of pops and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But other like it's the contrast is very startling when it happens, I guess is where I'm going with that, and it's intentionally so. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and it works really well throughout the whole film because it's not just the lighting, but it's also about like the textiles that they're using and how the light is reflecting and where the light source is coming from because they have to make it up so much of the time. So it all feels really ironically organic,
It
I think.
it does, and like there, I like what you mentioned about textiles, like materials. Even everything in this world is made out of metal, but different kinds of metal. Like
Mm.
there's chrome, but there's also like rusty stuff, and then there's copper, and it's like, and all these things, they look different, and they reflect light differently, and it's there's a lot of stonework. What is it? At the bullet farm, there's like buildings made from brick and stuff like
Right.
that, and it looks very different than anything else in the movie. It's
Yeah.
such a broad approach to it with such a focused idea. Like what do they have? What can they actually physically use to build from? Um,
Help the audience through the film that way too, because it does span decades. So if they can make locations distinct enough from each other, despite being in the outback, right? That helps the audience. So it's motivated, it works well, it's thematic, provides lots of contrast while not making it feel sterile. It actually feels very organic, which I don't think is completely a mistake, because that's the whole theme
well, it
of the
it it
movie.
feels believable, like, um and that's really important. Like, and it's even the crazy things that happen in this movie, like it's sets up some rules, but like nothing feels like it breaks the laws of physics necessarily. Like, and obviously they're making a movie, and none of these things have actually, none of these things actually happen the way that they appear that they do on screen. But it all comes back around to, like, it feels very gritty. Like these incredible things could actually happen to a degree, but that is contrasted by some of the storytelling bits. Like there's a narrator in this movie that says some pretty incredible things that we'll talk about afterwards. But it's like it feels very grounded while also like feeling like an oral history almost. Like what actually happened, what didn't, are any of these things possible? Just a very very interesting, very very specific line to walk that could be very
Yeah.
confusing if it was not handled as well as it is. Um,
Yeah, it's very well thought out. I never felt like I was lacking any context to try and get through it, despite not being well versed
um,
in the lore.
did you know that the big action scene on the rig about halfway through that took 78 days to film?
I am not surprised because that was beautiful.
Um,
That was great.
and it's a sustained attack on a rig. They There's like some aerial elements that are new to this. There's a pilot in the Road Warrior, so we've seen a little bit of that in the franchise before, but it's this is very different, and it feels very connected to Fury Road in a way, like in a physical kind of. I'm not sure I know how to articulate this. Um, and it's really like that's the first time that in the movie that we really see Furiosa like getting into things. At least, no, the first time that we see Anya getting into things. And she was like a stowaway, right? But I think I'm liking this movie more the more that I talk about it. Um,
I mean, it's done so well that I can't see it not getting technical nominations in the next award season.
I totally
It's
agree. It's gonna,
it's
yes.
really solid.
Um, it's just like it's a bit weird for the mainstream, more so even than Fury Road was, and I
Yeah,
think that is ultimately gonna hurt it,
yeah.
as
But it's
financially.
streaming again. Like
Yeah.
everything kind of blows up on streaming, and there's new ways to calculate success in that ways. So, I mean, we could come back here next time and be like, hey, was my prediction correct? Because I'm sure that, some of the people with the film, especially George Miller, will probably come out after it's on streaming and just be like, see, like it was successful on streaming, like go to the movie theater.
If
They just don't know how to quite measure that yet.
that's true, I I want to be optimistic because I want more of the. He says he's got one more in him, and he's 79 years old. So that's another thing. How the hell do they make these movies? How does a 79-year-old director make this? You know, it's not. He's no signs of slowing down. It's just no. It's
I think that speaks to how well crafted it is, though, because I think there's some of maybe that stillness in there that's like pause for reflection that Fury Road didn't quite have. It was like go, 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 go.
Mhm.
Overall thematic takeaways. Wow.
Yeah.
You know? Furiosa, though, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if he does get one more, how it might differ from Furiosa.
Any final thoughts before we talk about spoilers?
I just think Chris Hemsworth needed to do this movie. I think it's one of his best roles.
I agree.
I've seen most of his stuff, I think, and he does such a good job. Like the character is so outlandish and weird, but I mean, I'd love to see him getting like, would you call him lead or supporting actor in this? I don't know. I don't know how they might play that.
Yeah, that's hard to say. I think he actually has more spoken lines than Furiosa does. He might have more screen time than Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, but he might have better success in the supporting actor category though. So maybe we'll see. But I thought that he definitely did a good enough. I mean, it was a great performance from him in this that I think deserves to at least be talked about.
Well,
in that way.
I agree with you. Like, and he manages to find this really
interesting, conflicted.
Yes, and like not intimidating. It's really sinister place, like inside this, like what could on the surface be construed as very silly. You're like he's just like he's no less physical than he is in any of his other movies, but it is despite that, there's something here that he's never really done before, and it's very cool.
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, Anya's great too, but there's something about Chris Hemsworth in this movie. I was like, good for you. Like, she didn't need this movie. I feel like she's been pretty consistent.
Yeah,
and it's different for her, but it's like not unexpected. I think when Chris Hemsworth was cast, and then we got images of him in his like makeup, people were like, "What? Like, what is going on here?" But it's really works really well for him.
Ladies and gentlemen. No, yeah, I don't want to make fun of him because he is very good, but it's just
it's ridiculous.
It is.
He's the first person that would say it is ridiculous, and but like in acting school, one of the first lessons is, hey, playing a crazy person doesn't mean you play it like a crazy person. You play them like a normal, regular, secure, adjusted person that completely understands their motivations. So example A.
Get it, Chris Hemsworth. You don't need the hammer. Now you just need motorcycles or something.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm gonna do the thing, and here on out, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about spoilers. We've hit a lot of the things I wanted to talk about already, but just in case anyone hasn't seen the movie, definitely recommend you go do that, and then come back and finish up with us. That'd be great. We poked at it a little while ago. Anya Taylor-Joy is not in the first hour of this movie. There's a bit in the trailer with a young actress, and that young actress is, Wikipedia is going to tell me as soon as I scroll down to the cast. Alila Brown plays Furiosa as a child and a teenager, and it is no small amount, right? She's
great.
She gets taken early on from the fabled green place, which we actually get to see, and it's beautiful. And she detects invaders and tries to deal with them herself and gets taken by them. She gets and then they take her over to Dementus across the desert to Dementus's biker gang, and he kind of like takes her on as a, I don't want to say like takes her under his, because she's a prisoner, but
yeah, he kind of adopts her, but it's definitely not a mutual agreement, obviously.
Yeah, and he's not a fatherly figure. Yeah,
he's not a fatherly figure, but he has this little bit of a backstory of like
the teddy bear
children. Yes, he had a family, so there's some kind of motivation there for him to take care of other people, to provide, to make sure that everybody's taken care of. And I mean, that could go for a male or female character, but in his context, it's him.
Right.
And it's because of this tragic loss of his family. Like, I think that would motivate anybody to try and like create some sense of control and safety. So you get that little bit of a backstory, and then he keeps like giving the bear to Furiosa, and she kind of goes along with it as a means to an end.
Right, because even at a very young age, she's smart, right? And her mother comes and tries to help her, but that unfortunately doesn't work out. So she like kind of figures out, all right, if I'm gonna survive this, I kind of just need to play along. Which is horrifying for a child. Considering the context.
Very few lines, even as a child, and so this actress is mainly just using her facial expressions and her body language. And I mean, that's hard, I think, for younger actors to do, because it's like you don't even have a sense of your body, and it's like all of a sudden you're supposed to like not even have lines. She's great. I mean, I thought I was immersed, and I actually took me a while to like realize. I was like, where's Anya? But I was like, no, but like this is really good stuff. Like, she was great, and I didn't miss more Anya.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I thought it moved very thoughtfully throughout the story, and I loved this like hour-long prologue.
Yeah, I kind of had the same moment. I was just like, what? I looked at my phone. It's like, this movie's been going on for 45 minutes, and we haven't seen Anya yet.
I was like, oh yeah, she's in this.
It's not until like the second chapter. There are, like I said before, there are subheadings like title cards that come up, it's like an epic poem. Like but it doesn't. We don't get Anya until much later on, and then Dementus and his biker gang, they discover the Citadel, and then he takes over. Is it the gas town that he captures?
I think so.
Yeah, and that happens still in this like almost prologue part of the movie that goes on for an hour. So then Immortan Joe, who controls the Citadel, says, "All right, if you keep the gas flowing, we'll keep the water flowing." Basically, so they come to a mutual agreement in a weird scene where Chris Hemsworth accidentally tears off his own nipples. I
love that they just kind of gloss over that.
Yep. So he's got a man in like a trap, like he's the old manager of Gastown on this like spike that's going to crush his head, which he has for some reason attached to his nipples. And then he like trips or something and it crushes the guy. And he sets the trap off and maims himself in the process. He just keeps talking like everything's fine.
I'm like, whoops.
He's ridiculous.
It's insane. It's insane. And so I was just having a thought, because we had said earlier, like, why follow him? And there are structures in place of like who to follow and where to go.
I mean, if I were not to say that any one of these situations is a good place to be, but like if I were to pick, I would go with Immortan Joe, because he has clean water and he's telling me that he's going to save me. Like it's it makes sense. Or
But I
the
have a
human
question.
motivation makes sense to me.
You had said earlier that Dementis and his gang discover the Citadel. So I'm like, are there groups of people out there that just don't know that the Citadel exists or
There almost have to be.
these other places?
Uh,
So like that could be another motivation to follow him as well. It's like it's just chaos. You can't know everything that's going on. So
right. So
we're gonna
you found this
band
group of
together.
people.
Yeah.
How likely is it to find somebody? Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. They do kind of, I hadn't thought of it that way. They do kind of discover it. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Oh, let's
they're
go there.
driving somewhere, and then they're one of the war boys or whatever in Morton Joe's army guys like shoots a flare because he's in trouble, and then they're like, hey, what is this? And then they go and the guy takes them back to the Citadel, like it's something that they kind of just stumble on out in the desert.
Yeah. So that makes much more sense now. I'm like, I can see how there would be kind of like he's like a king of the wanderers,
Sure.
kind of,
um
until he's not, and then messes everything up.
and then Furiosa just hangs out. Well, no, at that meeting, Furiosa decides that she wants to stay with Joe.
Mhm.
And then we disguised as a mute boy.
She does that for herself because she finds out, like they
Yes.
said at that exchange, like you could be one of his wives, and she's just kind of like,
How about no?
okay.
Yeah, and then there's
She's
a
like, let's figure out what's going on here, but like at least I'm away from this guy. And then she sees one of the wives eventually give birth to deformed twins, right? Or
Mhm.
conjoined twins that aren't going to survive or
yes.
something. And she's like, no thanks.
So well, they tell that woman that just gave birth, like this is strike three, like you're going off to do to something worse.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
yeah. So you
Not such a cushy, charmed life. That, and she knows that, she's healthy, Furiosa. She's like, I
Mhm.
know that I'm healthy. So if I do end up having healthy children, that's all I'm ever going to do. And eventually that's going to kill me. So like she gets it. And there's one of the guys, I forget his name.
Rictus,
But he's like,
one of the sons.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, I like this child. And she's like,
Yeah.
no.
Let's not don't touch me.
So the motivation for her survival doesn't just come from like being there and choosing to be there. Like she purposefully disguises herself as a boy
Yes,
and keeps it up for
she's
years.
aware of these horrific things that are happening. Like she's able to figure them out and find a way to keep herself safe, right? So
Mhm.
she disguises herself as a boy and like goes and hangs out with the mechanics, basically.
She doesn't talk. She's mute for
Yeah.
years.
Um, and somewhere in here is when we finally go jump forward to Anya Taylor Joy. There's a between. I'm looking at the Wikipedia, but yeah, there's another chapter jump, and we're finally with adult Anya, and still Rictus, the one of Joe's sons. He's in Fury Road. He's still creeping on her quite a bit, or like he begins to think that she's a woman. It's
Mhm.
like this. He was weird when she was a kid, and now he's weird when she's an adult. So she tries to run away, and then she stows away on a war rig, where we meet this Praetorian Jack guy who's basically Mad Max. Like it's very a little bit of a
Is that
parallel there.
what it was referencing?
Well, I don't know. He's just like he's very similar to Mad Max in like the older movies. Like he even like kind of looks like him, other than Max doesn't do the oil on his face. But
Also,
go
how
ahead.
unhealthy. How many pimples are these people going to have putting all of this oil on their faces? Very non-comedogenic. All I have to
It's
say about that. Not a good skincare
it's
routine.
it is yeah. It's not hygienic, and they're in Fury Road they put spray paint in their mouth. You remember that? There's like the
No.
Ride Eternal, shiny and chrome, and then you put silver spray paint on your face before you go kill yourself. Like,
I think it has poison in it, doesn't it? Or is it just because it's like spray paint and it's poisonous anyway?
I don't know. I mean, you're not supposed to put spray paint in your mouth. That's bad for people.
I think there's something that's like in those though, that's like motivation to like finish the job. It's almost like suicide.
I mean that makes a lot of sense, though. That I can
That's what I
absolutely,
picked up on
yeah.
because in the big rig fight sequence in Furiosa, um the the guy in the actual like rig, like with all the goods and stuff, he like sprays it accidentally on himself. He like doesn't really like know what it does. And then like straight up just like dies when he needs to like do something for
Well, she got shot though.
Did he get shot?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't
yeah,
see
yeah.
that.
He gets shot and he drops down into like the cabbages.
Oh, I didn't see that he got shot. I was like, oh, he accidentally inhaled the suicide bomber stuff.
I mean, I guess
Anyway,
the expectation is that you die after you spray the spray paint, but
that's why I was like, oh, makes sense.
and this is where we get the big ridiculous action scene where like she is stowed away under the rig, and then she helps them eliminate some of the attackers and climbs up on top, and then eventually like captures or destroys this giant octopus kite thing. I don't,
Cool.
yeah, very cool. Very CGI. That is there's CGI there's CGI in Fury Road also. It's few and far between, and it's not as there's a lot more apparent green screen work in this movie than there was in that one. And that's just
Okay.
yeah. They still do a lot of amazing things. Like all 90% of this stuff with the guys on the paragliders is practical. You know, they're actually filming
cool.
most of this stuff. And it's like all the stuff.
It takes so long to shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, makes total sense.
Most of the stuff in Fury Road with the guys on the poles. Like, how do you do that safely? It's all practical. It's nuts. Sorry. No, it's so sometimes I get to a point where I'm just like, how do you do this without killing someone?
That's when you have to go see Fall Guy.
Yeah, Fall Guy was great, by
Which
the
I
way.
haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Stunts should, I guess. I mean, stunts should have its own category in more award shows. Like I think stunt coordinators should be eligible for Oscars. But like I said, until now, it's always just been in like the cinematography bucket, which is it's closely tied to. But that's not a cinematographer isn't doing stunts, right? So
Yeah. I mean, they might be following somebody doing a stunt. Like I love that shot. What is it in? I think it's the Winter Soldier.
Mhm.
He jumps out the window, and then the camera follows him from behind. And there's a shot of how they did that from below, and you can see the camera person like attached to the
falling with him.
thing.
Yep.
They're doing it right there. So, definitely a whole other world that is we don't know as much about because it's just not presented to us in the mainstream.
The Fall Guy,
like
it opens with this like big oneer where he's like greeting everybody on the set, and they go up the elevator up to the like the high level of the tower, and then they strap him in and he falls, and yeah, like there's a camera rig that chases him, and all of this. Not only is it just an impressive stunt, but it's all done in one take from the beginning of the movie up to like minute 6.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, how do we feel about the ending here? Like, oh no, well, no, hold on. Before we get there, I'm gonna go back. Because she knew that they were gonna take her away somewhere. She didn't want to lose track of how to get home, so she tattoos it on her arm, the map of how to get back to the green place where her mother was. And then anyone who's seen Fury Road knows that she doesn't have a left arm, right? She has this like contraption prosthesis. So we find out what happened to her, and at first it gets like smashed between two vehicles. But did she shortly after that she gets suspended from the arm, and then she has to watch her buddy Praetorian Jack like get drugged behind a motorcycle and killed by dogs. Did she amputate herself, or did it just happen because it was already messed up?
I think she amputated herself. That's my
Like,
my inclination, because when you see it, it looks bad.
yeah,
But she's still strung up, and she's like that for a while. And the way that it's shot, I think, suggests that she very purposefully waited until she had an opportunity to.
Yeah, because they're Dementis and the other biker guys. They're just like not paying attention to her for like the hubris. Like he's sinister and he's scary and he's funny. He's also like kind of a doofus. Like he took over Gastown with no idea how to run it, and then Gastown eventually turns on him. And then with this, he's just like torturing this other guy and doesn't pay attention to her for hours at a time, and she disappears. And then we get that lovely moment with the maggots. We don't need to talk about the maggots.
Oh, so gross. But I just love the way that they ended up getting there, because it's like it's the same thing with the actress in the beginning playing the younger version of Furiosa. Like it's kind of like you're waiting to find out how she loses her arm, but it's like the same thing where it's paced so well, the story's so good, you're immersed in it, that I'm like, when it happened, I was like, oh yeah, I'm waiting to find out. The same way that I was like, oh yeah, I need Taylor Joyce.
Yeah,
Because it's a very well made movie with a good narrative, and so it's like all these little things that are getting wrapped up into the extra diegesis of it.
Do we get more answers than we needed?
No,
Like, did we?
so.
Well, okay. So, having seen Fury Road, this is like, was this a necessary story to tell?
I don't know if it was necessary as much as it was an opportunity
Sure.
to do something a little bit different and make a different kind of commentary with a different story that more or less has been well received. I think
the reviews for this movie are very good. It's not the box office is a separate conversation. Then people who are watching it are liking it a lot.
But even then, with the box office, like it's not too far off of breaking even. And I think even
it needs to double its money to break even. It's got a long way to go. I asked this question because I see a lot of reviewers adding that, down in the third paragraph. It was like, this movie's good, but I didn't need this movie. And I have seen that, like, I don't want to compare this movie to like Solo, a Star Wars story, except that that's a movie that we didn't need. People don't like that one, right? And this is how does he get the gun? We didn't need to know how he got the gun. Did we need to know how she lost her arm? I think it's important because it's like, it's not just something that happened to her. Like it's very tied into like her personal journey as to why, and I think that's an important distinction to make.
Yeah.
And I also
because if you do know that you're looking for her to lose the arm throughout the film, like when she has it tattooed on her, it's not just about it being tattooed there, she's going to lose it. It's about that being an identifying marker.
Yes.
She is Furiosa. And so when she loses it, it's like, oh yeah, I've been waiting for that. But it's also like, now she doesn't have her map, but also she can get away with not being identified. There's a lot going on more than just like, oh, so that's how that happened. Which is why I think like
I totally agree.
It does better than did we need this movie, because it ties in so many extra like well thought out thematic things than just.
And if it is well conceived, if it if we enjoy it, like it's the movie's job to justify its existence, and I would say that applies to any movie. That's not just a sequel to an 80s franchise. And I would have said this, like going into Fury Road, I was like, do we need this movie? And it turned out like I fucking love Fury Road. It's incredible. People were asking the same question. Like, do we need this thing from the 80s to come back? Like, why? Why is this happening? And no, it justifies its existence. And I absolutely think this one does. But I think it's, there are interesting cultural questions to ask. And, there's always, I don't want to say criticizing criticism, but, there are trends, and I'm interested in examining whether or not trends are justified or if they make sense to me even sometimes. Because sometimes, often they do.
Yeah.
So
I think the same thing is gonna, it comes up every time that James Bond comes back up, right? Like, do we need this? But at this point, it's also like one of those kind of serialized things where you expect it to come back, so it's a little bit different. But I suspect that when they really start making another trilogy of James Bond movies, they're gonna, the discourse is gonna be, do we need this? Why do we need this?
That's
How
a good
does this
point.
help us structure our knowledge of this time?
And I think the answer is they need to do something different with Bond. I would say that's what they did with Daniel Craig. Like there have been a couple of times in the past where James Bond has gone back to being gritty. Like Timothy Dalton's movies, they're like a lot more serious than the ones that came right before it. But no, yeah, you need to have an objective in mind. Like what's the hook here? They need to bring in a good writer and a good director that have a new take on it. Whereas, and I follow that up with, I don't think anyone besides George Miller should be making Mad Max movies, but I want him to be able to make more.
I think my inclination is to say that they'll get greenlit to do another one. And it's because it will get nominated for technical Oscars. Mm-hmm. I think that people will start talking about Chris Hemsworth.
If Chris Hemsworth wins an Oscar for this, I would scream. I'd be so excited for him. Win. I don't think he will either.
I would too.
but
I think that just being in that conversation will be a lot for him. And I think RDJ will probably be there like, hey,
we need a picture.
Let's do a double feature. But and the streaming component will be really, really big. I think I would venture to say that HBO Max will probably buy it and put it on there, and it'll do really well.
I've already ordered my Steelbook. That's me though. I'm a physical, and I have boxes of them. I don't have room for them where I live right now, so I have boxes and boxes of Blu-ray discs in storage. But anyway, what about the ending? I think is the last thing I want to touch on. What actually happened here? Do we have enough information to take a guess? Even is the narrator unreliable? There's a what happens to
the narrator is unreliable in the sense that any narrator of mythology or fable is unreliable, and it's totally just based on interpretation.
Absolutely, and based on retelling. Mad Max is a legend, not a history, right? It's and Fury Road didn't have much of this, but going back to like the Road Warrior has a narrator, and they talk about him like there's this legendary guy that we encountered once, and then we never saw him again. That kind of thing.
That definitely feels like Furiosa in this film in particular, especially with the way that they leave it. Because I think the ending that you're talking about is what ends up happening to Dementis. Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay. But even more than that, I love like the final shot of the movie. I think it's the final shot because it looks like Charlize Theron, but you can't really tell. But it really looks like Charlize Theron, like going on the journey of Fury Road. And it's so subtle and intertextual, and like that was my favorite part about it, actually, was the ambiguity of that. It kind of reminded me of the ambiguity at the end of the last John Wick movie, where it's like, is he alive? Is he not? Because it's Furiosa, but
Yep.
I really thought it looked like Charlize Theron.
I think it's intentional too,
Starring.
because this movie runs directly into the start of Fury Road. Like, and I wish they hadn't done that part of it. Like, and
Really,
they
I
even
liked that.
over the credits, they even do like a montage of all the beats from Fury Road. I'm just like, that just watch the other movie, because all that all this stuff is now out of context. But
I think
I
that speaks to a broader trend of intertextuality and transmedia storytelling
right,
in this landscape. So I thought it was cool that they actually like weren't trying to ignore it and were like, here you go. Because then it's like, where are you gonna go from here? Right? Like, and I think that's what frustrates some audiences. They're like, you're just grabbing my cash for what reason? And like, where are you going to go from here? Are you going to ruin it in between them? So I thought it was really cool and smart to try and bring those two together. But I also see how that could be frustrating because it's like, feels maybe a little anticlimactic. Maybe that's why it's
a
moving.
little like it makes it seem like this story was less important than it is because it's just leading to this other story. Like it's like I
I
think
see what you're
they
saying.
could have implied there was more time in between them. I guess. Like I don't know. Like, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I haven't been making movies for 50 years, so I'm just saying what I see. Like I just it doesn't.
I totally
Or
see that.
they definitely didn't need the
And I think that's
recap of
why
Fury Road. Like they, if they had just
you
shown,
just leave it.
yeah, show the women getting on the rig.
Yeah.
Like
Well, that they did that at the very
yeah,
end.
that's they do that, but then but that scene isn't in Fury Road, right? They're when the credits roll, and then a few seconds after the credits starts, they literally have scenes from Fury Road, like and that's
So you would just rather them have not put in those scenes from Fury Road.
if I were to pick one, I would have said don't link them together at all because we know where it's going. But if I would have preferred that they didn't have the Fury Road stuff if I had to pick one. It's like Steven Spielberg's Lincoln. I love that movie. The focus of that movie is the signing of the 13th. Is it the 13th? It's the amendment that outlaws slavery. And I think I
13.
yeah. And they that they succeed, and then there's there's a little bit of a wrap up, and then there's this other scene where he's going to the show where he's about to be assassinated, which I don't think they need. But then they also have a scene with him after that in the bed. It's like, okay, so just show him walking out of the house. Everybody knows where he's going. We don't need this. And that's my only thought on it.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I think that's from a different media environment. So
It absolutely
just,
is. Like not even like social media wasn't a thing, and like review culture and influencers and the people making amateur podcasts. It was not a thing. That was is in 2012.
I just, my inclination is to think that maybe the reasoning behind it is something to do with some kind of sense of completeness in all of
Okay,
these kind of like prequels and remakes and off of existing IP kinds of things that have dominated the last 10 or 15 years.
sure.
Because I think people are so tired of it. They're like, how much more of this are you going to give me? So it wraps it up. It feels fast, but I also think that's why, like, I swear to God, it was Charlize Theron in that very last shot.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
swear to God, it
if
was.
I recall, you don't see her face. You only see her from the back, right?
You see her profile. You see
Yeah.
the back, and then you see the profile. And I
Okay.
was like, maybe I'm totally wrong and just like delusional. And I was like, what? So I think that helps wrap it up. And then maybe putting the Mad Max scenes in the credits was just over the top.
Did
Like a little too much.
did she really plant the seed in Chris Hemsworth? Is that a thing that happened, or is that
I
is
don't want to believe that, but I don't think that's like anatomically, like biologically possible.
yeah? I don't know if that's how it works. It seems like it adds to to the
Mythos.
fable legendary nature of it all. Like this is what people said happened. Is is that really what happened? Is that even possible? Does anyone actually know? Did she like I have a feeling that she just shot him out or left him out in the desert. Um,
Yeah. What was the
but
other option? Like drug him behind her for like 3 days,
something
something
like
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, very Hector situation.
Yeah, it's Pressy's mom. Because yes, and it also evokes the way that what's his name was tortured and killed in
Yeah,
front of
exactly.
her,
It seems more. Well, I don't know. Like I was about to say,
and
seems more
it's also
poetic to
middle
me, but
ground.
the seed was a thing that they kept bringing back throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
She sucks on the seed. Um,
Mm, I don't know, but maybe she went back and planted it just there because.
yeah. Because it
But
was in the spot where she had the moment of connection with Jack, right? If
mhm.
it zooms out and it's that little cubby hole in the rocks where they
Yeah,
they had their moment.
and also like, wasn't it just kind of insinuated like that's where she lives, like
Yeah,
in this
kind of, sort of,
little
yeah.
hospital place that she's like, this is my corner. I'm gonna go find it. This is mine.
Any final thoughts?
Um, I think this movie is great. I just don't think it's for everybody
I would agree with
and
that.
may not be the right tone for lots of people, especially after the pandemic. So I can
Mhm.
see why it wouldn't be making as much money, especially considering now that I know that the first movie didn't make so much either. I
Let
do not think that precludes it from being well loved with time or the awards season.
Fury Road's box office is 380 million against a budget of 155. So that's good. It's not great. Like that's mathematically a financial success, but not a huge one. Um, and even
Yeah,
like
I think,
it's probably better based on 2015 numbers than current numbers too. So that's a relevant thing.
yeah. And I just think that, you know, everybody's happy about the success of Barbie and Oppenheimer last year. And also realizing this summer that that's a very one off situation. It was the right movies at the right time, the right sociological conditions. And I think that not doing well at the box office is not an indicator of not succeeding anymore
We're not
because
going
we're
to go
still.
back to the way box office was in 2019. That's never.
Yeah,
It's never going to be like that again. There are too many people that are just not going to go see movies anymore. But
yeah,
you know, uh, Barbie and Oppenheimer prove that we can. Like there's still success to be had. Even Planet of the Apes came out just a few weeks ago, and it's still doing very well. It's it has to
so then
be.
you have Planet of the Apes, which more people like could bring their kids to go see. Maybe it's not
I mean,
as,
and being a rated R movie like that definitely impacts box office because
yeah, yeah. So I think though that um, given all of those factors, like I feel like they should be, if not happy, content with its box office performance. And
um,
I'm very interested to see how the box office performance of Deadpool and Wolverine will be like next month.
I'm betting ballpark 750. It's gonna, right around what like Black Panther 2 did. It's not gonna. It's There's no way it's gonna get to $1 billion. I don't believe it. I want to
No,
believe. I don't think it's gonna get there.
it won't. It won't. But even Black Panther 2, like that wasn't a good movie. I think it's kind of like, how good of a movie do they make? I don't know.
There are times
What,
like the Venom movies keep making
because
money and they're
Furiosa is a
fucking
great
terrible.
movie.
No, exactly. Like and they're it does that's not enough, right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't matter that you've made something amazing, or sometimes something terrible flies away with it. Like the Venom movies are both very successful. The second one less so,
Never
but
seen.
you don't need to watch them. They're bad. But even Venom
This is
2
the
did.
first one, like what?
Um,
And I've never seen the second one.
yeah, the second one even did like 500. You know, and that's impressive and upsetting. Did
I think it's all
did you
kind
see
of
Madam
rough
Web? You
because
did because we talked about it.
I did.
But
And so
what a
that's
fucking
exactly why
nightmare.
I'm saying why measuring the success off of streaming is one, a little bit of a cop out, but also something to consider.
Because apparently
Because
Madam Web is doing
honestly,
well on Netflix.
it's doing so well on Netflix. And I mean, I haven't watched it again since I saw it in theaters.
Saw it once.
But like that's the thing. It's like people are like, okay, I'll watch it when it comes out, and then it gets really popular. And Netflix is just happy to have people watching it. And then even Zack Snyder said, I think it was Zack Snyder said something recently about like, oh, because it was about Rebel Moon. He was like, Rebel Moon did as well as like Barbie because this many people are calculated to have watched it on streaming, and it's the same number of people calculated through box office revenue.
That seems
Barbie.
odd, but in theory that makes sense, right? I don't.
Exactly, right? But it's like
I think
how
he's. I think he's.
successful is that?
There's a little
Is
bit
that
of.
success.
I think there's a little bit of hyperbole built in there, but also our first episode of the show was the Snyder Cut. I was wearing this T-shirt. That was 3.5 years ago.
That's insane. And I've been doing a Henry Cavill marathon recently. And
what any good Henry
Snyder
Cavill
Cut-
movies that I need to watch?
I mean,
that I haven't
they're
seen?
all good.
Are they?
I haven't watched the one with what's his name, Nicholas Holtz. Nicholas Holt stars in it, and then Henry Cavill's also in it. It looks intense. It's about like Afghanistan. I haven't watched that. He's got other stuff that's really good. He plays like a cop who's like investigating sex crimes in another movie, and that's actually really good. It has Alexandra Daddario in it. And I recently just watched one of his first movies, The Count of Monte Cristo. And that was actually really good. And he's so young. Like 19. That was really good.
The Count of Monte Cristo,
the
like
next
from
thing-
the 90s or the
yeah, it's like 2006 or something like that.
2000. He's in this. What?
Yeah.
I know he was in. He plays Charles Brandon in The Tudors. That would have been like
He
the
does.
first thing that I remember him from. I need
Yeah,
to
me
watch.
too.
I need to watch Count of Monte Cristo again. Apparently.
It was good. I watched it for the first time the other night and I was like, wow.
Oh, really?
But I watched Batman versus Superman like last week, and then my parents put it on last night. Actually, you know, I had come in on Friday here to my parents' house, and my mom had Batman versus Superman going because I'd had an awful travel day, and she was like, "When you get here, we'll watch some Henry Cavill." She had it going, and I was like, "Oh, I just watched this the other day." She's like, "Well, I don't understand it at all, so let's put on Man of Steel." And I was like, "Okay." So we watched Steel 2 nights ago. Started watching Batman versus Superman last night, and so then my next.
You can't watch it in one
Snyder
sitting.
Cut.
It's too much. It's
Literally.
terrible.
I know.
Okay,
I
so
know, but
we're
Snyder Cut is my next stop, like tonight.
we're rambling. So we will. I'm gonna do the wrap up, and we can keep talking about Hank. We both liked Furiosa. It's got it's the production design and the stunt work is absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot to dig into here if you take the time. Some really great performances, some really interesting thematic material, and just like the framing device of like oral tradition is very, very cool. So as always, thanks for watching. If you want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Brandon. I'm Engine25 on all the things, sometimes with an underscore. You can find us on YouTube and podcast services by searching Engine25 Reviews, no space in Engine25. And we'll be back soon with a new review. Until then, go watch a movie. Thanks, guys.